This time on Ask Rad Rat, we talk about going pro, and we talk about a skateboarding anime. Let's do it. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding where we do all kinds of different things. We talk about skateboarding video games and do reviews and gameplay of that type of stuff. We teach tricks, we sometimes build stuff, and sometimes we answer your questions. Today we got a few. The first is from Josh W, who says, when and why did skateboarders start saying manual? When you listen to Rodney Mullen talk in old interviews, he always said wheelie, and he still does. Pretending I'm a Superman, the documentary about the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series, he uses that, talking about like modern stuff when he was out skateboarding and he was doing a wheelie and somebody came up and talked like, that's just what he says. And I think he's technically wrong, but here's technical, like what's technically correct in skateboarding can mean different things based on what year you're talking about. Like it's kind of confusing. So here's the breakdown. In freestyle, it is a wheelie because there's no obstacle. So if you're just skating around on flat, you pull up two wheels, it's a wheelie. There's wheelies, there's nose wheelies, there's Swedish nose wheelies, which is where your foot is in the middle of the board, your back foot is beneath the tail, and you pull the board up and balance like that. There's coconut wheelies, which is like a primo slide, but the deck isn't sliding, it's tilted just enough that the wheels are rolling. Lots of different kinds of wheelies. And then a manual came about when people were skating pools. You would go up the transition, gap out onto the deck, manual, and drop back in. They called that a manual. So it got to be that anything on an obstacle was considered a manual, anything in freestyle was considered a wheelie. But again, like the only technically correct answer is that it has to be done in a pool to be a manual, but like, I don't know. I don't think wheelie really makes sense to use at this point. But Mullen will use wheelie when talking about doing manuals on an obstacle. So he's just used to saying it that way. He's been talking that way for his whole life and he just kind of still uses it. I use manual for everything all the time because the era I grew up in. Like, you know, if I'm manualing from one parking lot straight to the next one, I would still consider that a manual, even if technically it wasn't in 1984, you know? I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question. It is tough though, because the way that skateboarding terminology changes, there's no dictionary that enforces the correct way to use stuff. The names change, and so you just kind of have to pick whichever one makes the most sense. Okay. Next questions are from Yerky. 2 questions. In my local skate shop, there are a lot of different types of skate wax. Do the different types of wax really make a difference? How different is skate wax from regular candle wax? Not different. There are different kinds of candle wax too. There's like beeswax and like soy candles and whatever. Like there's different kinds of wax, but I don't think it makes much of a difference as far as skateboarding is concerned. I think the major difference in skate wax versus a candle is that you don't have a candle when you're at the skate spot. So recently I bought a candle to wax up some spots. I did a video where I was trying to do a kickflip 5-0 shove it out on a curb, and I went and I bought a candle from the grocery store to wax it up, and it works just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that you have a candle and it's not really shaped in an easy way. It feels like you're drawing on it with a crayon instead of like waxing, but it works just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But not too long ago, someone sent me an actual block of skate wax, and I forget who it was. Sorry if it was you. But yeah, like the big difference is it's hand shaped and has got a flat, wide surface area so you can wax up a little bit easier. That's the only difference. Like they both feel like wax, and I don't think if you put them head to head in performance, there's gonna be any difference. And if there was, there's no reason to say the skate wax would be better. So if you wanna save a buck and get a candle, go ahead. It's not really gonna make any difference. Question 2, does skate hardware really make a difference when skating? There are many different skate hardware types, some Allen, some Phillips. Does this really make a difference when skating? When skating, no. They're just keeping your trucks on your board. They're all gonna do it just as well. but there are some differences. So I had a question just like this years ago, like one of the first Ask Red Rats, I was talking about it. And I said, oh, it's all the same, don't worry about it. I just get the basic stuff, like the normal Philips hardware is the stuff I get. And a lot of people sent me messages and they were like, dude, you gotta go for Allen. It's 100 times better. It doesn't strip. You can reuse it easier. And that's kind of true. I've switched to Allen myself. Do I have Allen right now? I might not actually, because sometimes I'll get stuff with something else. I don't know. But I would generally not pick Philips anymore because it does strip. So if you tighten it too much, you'll start to bend the metal, and then when you try to unscrew it, it'll start to slip and it won't grab as well. If you don't have the right size screwdriver, then that could mess with it too. And if you just have an Allen wrench the right size, it's pretty much perfect. Like, you're not gonna have any problems. But there are some issues with hardware. I remember I bought, was it Lucky? I think that was the brand, Lucky Hardware, and I bought the shortest one because something you don't want is the bolts to be way too long and they stick out. That would suck because if you do any damage to that part that sticks out of the bolt, the nut won't, like, you can mess with the threading and you can't get the nut back off. So I wanted the ones where when you tighten it, it's just barely sticking out a tiny bit. So I got the shortest bolts that they had. These are Skate branded bolts. Like, this wasn't the hardware store, this was a skate shop. And I tried to build a board with them, and the bolts were so short that they didn't even stick through the base plate of the truck. Like, I don't know who could use this. I really have no idea. They're just garbage. They're just sitting in the box they came in upstairs. I can't use them. But so maybe don't get the super short ones, because I don't have like super thick base plates or risers or anything like that. I don't know. But yeah, so I would prefer to not go for Philips and get Allen instead. But aside from that, it's really not that big of a difference. Okay, next question from Teravine, who says, skateboarding anime coming soon. Not too much here, but maybe there is a short clip at the beginning. Maybe the animation of this will get it right. Well, I'm sure some elements will be exaggerated, but some realistic sequences might happen. If possible, I'm going to show a little clip of this trailer right here. Guy does a board slide back to normal on a curb, and it looks really good. It looks accurate. And he does, was it a varial flip or something? It's been a while since I watched it. If you saw nothing there, it was because I tried and got copyright blocked. But yeah, it looked interesting. The actual footage and the animation looked like it was maybe traced off of actual footage. So that could be interesting to watch. I'm not a big fan of any shows, any Japanese animation at all. Typically, because it's usually like about a 12-year-old, and they're usually like the best in the world at something, and it just gets a little boring. And then when their hot friend shows up and there's like a swimsuit episode and they're still 12, like that happens immediately. There was a show I started to watch. So I spent a lot of time working on my computer. I have 3 screens set up in my office, and one I'll usually have something playing. I'll have like a YouTube channel playing or whatever. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna find a nice show that I've never seen before, and I'm gonna check it out. And so I found this show from Japan. It's an anime about a kid who gets like a device where any of his thoughts will come true. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like an interesting idea. First thing that happens, he's like in middle school. First thing that happens is like he thinks about the girl that just bent over, and then like her underwear fly off, and then they like all of the girls' underwears fly off and make like a big ball in the sky. Like, what is this? Every show that I've tried to watch gets really pervy about kids immediately, and I don't understand why. But anyway, if this skateboarding show is not pervy toward kids, and it looks like the trailer did, then I'm going to check it out. I did set a calendar notice for January when the series is actually supposed to come out, and I will check it out. If it's worth talking about, I'll do a video on it. But yeah, it looked interesting anyway. Okay. The next question is from Dante B, who says, What are your thoughts on the whole have to have a pro board to be considered a professional? I think it's kind of stupid, but I'm not saying get rid of them. I consider being pro by getting paid to skate. I know of lots of skaters who get paid by companies but don't have signature gear. I think the way other sports do it is much better, like you sign a deal and you compete to get paid per contest, and where there's lots of pro skaters that don't do contests, and that is a tricky subject. Also, why do you have Rodney Mullen footage playing during your outro? Because I like Rodney Mullen. Okay, so people ask me this every single day. They really, really want to know about being a professional skateboarder in the technical sense. So like you're saying, professional just means getting paid to. In my opinion, being professional means you make your living doing it. So for a lot of AM skaters, so there's you and me, as we are nothing, and if we got paid to go to events or whatever, we'd be AM skaters. You get paid, but you're not really a pro, either technically in the skateboarding industry or also by my opinion, because you probably have to have a job and you skateboard on the weekends, you know, or you skateboard all the time, but you like skateboard for work every now and then. Being a pro skater means you make money by doing skateboarding, but that doesn't mean anything right now. It really doesn't, because you aren't just skateboarding. Back in the day, in the 90s, let's say, you would just skate, somebody would film you, somebody else would, you know, edit it together, make a video to market the boards that have your name on them, and you make money. All you're doing is skating. That's not really the thing now. Some people maybe, but for the most part, like, you're filming Instagram videos, you're making your own little ads, you are doing a post about the muscle cream sponsor that you have, or GoPro sends you the new camera and you film a clip with it to show off the new 3D or 360 view feature or whatever. Like, all that kind of stuff is pro skateboarding, but it's also being like a pro influencer, you know? Like, the lines are so blurry now that it doesn't really mean anything. But yeah, so like if I were to make my own boards and I sold them, could consider myself a pro because I have a pro model, but I'm not. I wouldn't make my living off of that. At most, I'd make a couple $100 a month, let's say, or, you know, if someone else's company wanted to give me a board, maybe a couple $100 a month. But for the most part, I'm a professional web designer, right? No matter what other stuff I do on the side, no matter how much I skate and how much money I make doing stuff related to skateboarding, I'm a web designer who has a side hustle of selling stuff that's skateboarding themed. You know, like, it's so blurry now, it just doesn't matter. Okay, if you want to use the 90s standards, then you have to have a pro model with your name on it to be considered a pro. But that just doesn't mean anything anymore. So anyway, please stop asking me that question. I get it literally every single day. But that's it for now. If you do have a question not related to the definition of being a pro, go to radratvideo.com. You can buy a shirt and you can submit your question. You can sponsor me on Patreon and you can submit questions through there, which I will definitely answer. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.